Yeah, I'll react to that, sure.
How on earth can the country,
I don't
which
know.
is the 80th largest by land size in the world, with the
Preemptive like.
21st largest population,
Original link to the video, top of the description. Hope you guys are doing well. My name's Connor. If you're new, let's learn.
have the 5th largest economy on the planet? With an economy size of around 3.1 trillion US dollars, the United Kingdom stands as
Much
the
less
country
people,
with the
too.
5th highest GDP in the world, placing them above India, a nation with a population over 20 times larger.
I would not have guessed that, actually. I didn't realize India isn't on the list here. I don't think I would have guessed that UK has a bigger economy than India in 2024.
Larger and 13 times more land size. So how is this relatively small country so damn rich? In this video, we shall find out. Alright, before we begin, let's have some quick fire financial statistics so that we've got some reference and baseline for understanding the wealth of the UK. The UK as a whole comprises of four different countries. England.
Okay, so Northern Ireland is in Ireland and it's in the United Kingdom. The British Isles is everything. Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Great Britain is just the island part, so it excludes Northern Ireland. It has a GDP of 3.1 trillion US dollars, a GDP per capita of just over $46,000, an average salary of $41,000. It exports $837 billion worth of goods. The average house price across the UK is $367,000 US dollars. However, the average house price in London is $705,000.
Guys, I think that I was trying to, obviously, you know, I think you do have some good gas and oil reserves, but I think that most of the, like, your commodity is your kind of your history and your government and your, like, the Industrial Revolution started in the United Kingdom. You guys have such a long history of manufacturing and banking, and so you're just reliable, and people don't feel as nervous like going to you for like educate. So I think it's intangible, and it's just you guys. A lot of what the international world is today, I think you have a big argument that you, if not you started it, you had a big role in starting the current kind of international trade system and a lot of governments. And so I think the British Empire is still sort of paying dividends in that sense. And so I do you know what I mean? Do you get what I mean? So I think that's where a lot of your worth is from. It's just you have very smart people and a capable government that has been used as a model for a lot of other places. So it's hard to like take that away.
Apart from London, the UK doesn't really have any super sprawling megacities. Birmingham and Manchester are pretty big, relatively speaking, but it's nothing like China, the US, or India, for example, who have multiple megacities with gigantic skyscrapers and sprawling city spaces. Fun fact, China actually has over 100 cities with more than 1 million population. According to the UK Office for National Statistics, or the ONS, the services sector is the largest sector in the UK, accounting for more than 3/4 of the GDP. The service industry in the UK comprises of many industries, including finance and business services, consumer-focused industries such as retail, food and beverages, and entertainment. Manufacturing and production contribute to less than 21% of the total GDP, and agriculture contributes to just 0.6%. First of all, let's take a more in-depth look at GDP.
That's another thing, is you're culturally super significant. I would say the US is probably more so nowadays, but especially considering your size, you have a lot of qualities to you that these aren't things that you can run out of necessarily. At least not quickly. So
gross domestic product. This is how much a country produces and measures how big its economy is. Production translates into income because everything produced and sold gets paid for, and those payments find their way into somebody's pocket, whether through wages, rents, returns on stocks, or pensions. The USA is by far the largest economy by GDP, with over 20 trillion US dollars, nearly a quarter of the global production. This gives it it a huge clout in international relations. The market size means it can dictate terms on accessing its market, as other countries would love to access such a market. As mentioned earlier, the UK's GDP is around 3 trillion, which puts it 5th in the world, about 3.3%.
Wait, what did you say? Sorry, I'm thinking.
The largest economy by GDP, with over 20 trillion US dollars, nearly a quarter of the global production. This gives it a huge clout in international relations. The market size means it can dictate terms on accessing its market, as other countries would love to access such a market. As mentioned,
this is what I mean by the British Empire still sort of paying dividends. I mean, wars fought in the 1700s, say against the French in North America, have an enormous effect. I mean, you have two enormous friends that are like, it's going to be really hard to turn America and Canada against the United Kingdom, against Europe for sure, but even more so against the United Kingdom. And like, just you winning against the French. I mean, the French helped us against you, and we are still much more close with you guys than we are with the French, although we're close with them. I think just because of mutual culture, language and whatnot. So a lot of what you guys did around the world during the British Empire is still benefiting you. It's what I can tell.
Mentioned earlier, the UK's GDP is around 3 trillion, which puts it 5th in the world, about 3.3% of global production. This makes the UK a very important global economy. On GDP, China is the second largest, with around 13 trillion and rising, putting it at around 15 or 16% of the world's production. Next, GDP per capita. This shows roughly how rich a country's citizens are by dividing GDP by population. It shows how much each person gets if wealth was shared equally, which of course does not happen, but it's still a useful measure. So while GDP shows how large an economy is, GDP per capita shows how rich it is. On this measure, the UK is around 22nd in the world, with around 43,000 US dollars, well below the likes of Monaco and Luxembourg, but still not too bad. The UK led the way in industrialization in the late 18th century and developed many industries and institutions that have helped it retain a strong economy. That's
kind of what he just phrased it much more quickly and better than, that's kind of what I was trying to allude to, but he said it much better.
Institutions cannot emerge overnight. That have helped it retain a strong
it can't emerge
economy.
overnight.
These institutions cannot emerge overnight, and currently very poor countries are developing them, but it will take lots of time. These institutions include rule of law, property rights such as physical and intellectual, competition law, an independent central bank.
I don't think that can be stressed enough.
Contract law, political checks and balances, and independent judiciary, bankruptcy laws, welfare state, and compulsory schooling. All of these things help the economy by helping a secure business environment and boosting human capital, that's skills and innovation. People invest knowing the government will not steal their capital. The UK scores very highly on the World Bank's Doing Business report, which measures the business.
Didn't I just watch a video like a week ago saying Georgia is very corrupt at the... Yeah, why would they be on this?
Friendliness of the country's regulations. It is kind of a flawed index, but can be used as a snapshot here to show that the UK values business and economic growth. Because of historically accumulated capital and skills, the UK has a huge productive capacity, strong innovation potential, and low costs.
Reliable.
And these features make it competitive relative to countries that do not have these human and physical capital endowments. It has a very diversified economy, producing in many different sectors, including many high-value ones such as aerospace supplies and semiconductors. Just recently, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has vowed that the UK will become a superpower in terms of AI, technology, and innovation within the next decade.
What was said about, like, you can't just do this overnight. You know, there are a lot of very capable, rich nations around the world that weren't so 150 years ago. And, like, they can build a similar society to the UK, but they don't have the track record over decades and centuries that the UK has and other countries. But that I think that's a huge point that has to be
Poorer
made.
countries have not got much past their primary resource export, which are
repeating
low
myself,
value
sorry.
added. This lack of diversity also
coffee.
makes their economies vulnerable to global price dynamics,
Now
as
drink
primary commodities tend to have volatile prices. The UK and other rich economies with diverse productive bases can absorb price shocks in any sector. If the price of cars were to suddenly fall, then the UK is still producing aeroplanes and semiconductors, so it can afford to take the hit. But if the likes of oil falls, then places like Saudi Arabia will be hit extremely hard and may not recover. Also, because of historically developed institutions, the UK has relatively stable monetary policies, which are good for business confidence, investment, and international trade. The UK has a leading position in economic affairs to the UN Security Council, OECD, IMF, World Bank, and its role in giving aid, all of which allow it to defend its interests abroad, although this is not the only purpose that the UK is involved in these institutions. Also, having a large global market, remember it is the 5th largest in the world, allows the UK some scope to dictate terms to access its market for foreign exports. The UK has a strong financial centre, partly due to the language. English is of course the international business language. Its location at 0-degree longitude can capture the trading hours of both New York and Tokyo, thus the span of the global finance industry, its proximity to EU, a huge trading bloc, and having historical core competence in finance. Historically, the UK benefited from imperialism, looting its colonies and imposing unequal trade treaties on weaker countries in order to take advantage of them and capture most of the benefits of their trade. Look at the East India Company, for example. The rich countries, it could be argued, still take advantage of poorer ones through inciting if poor countries want aid. They do not set protective tariffs that the rich countries themselves use during their own development to nurture industrial development. They impose on poor countries a development model that they did not themselves use and which has many flawed problems. Free market, open borders to capital, and no policies. In short, allowing the advanced Western firms to come in and capture the market. So yes, the UK is still rich, and it is likely to continue to be relatively rich for the near future, because so many of its advantages are due to historical legacy that give the UK huge development advantages and global power and influence.
You can't take that away. I want to Nauru, okay? I need to make sure it's Nauru, just because I keep bringing up this as an example. So I feel like every developing country should be taught about Nauru bird poop. Yes, it is. Yep. Okay, it's Nauru. Where Nauru is a country in the Pacific. It's a small island country in the Pacific where over decades, centuries, maybe probably millennia, it was a place where Pacific seafaring birds would stop and poop on for a long time. So that builds up over time. And then you have this enormous reserve of this bird poop that just so happens to have a really important ingredient in some fertilizers around the world. I'm pretty certain I'm getting this right. Even if it's not perfectly right, I'll still get my point across. But so there's this poor country in Nauru that suddenly was filthy rich because it had this important deposit of this bird feces. And then it became super rich. But this is where they didn't invest in anything to make them stay successful in the future when that limited supply of bird poop is gone. And so they lived like kings. I think this is in like the 80s when this happened. And then it all went away and they didn't do anything to like diversify their economy with that jackpot that they had. And then they went right back to being poor. And so I feel like that should be a lesson any developing country should get. And so it shows you how important, I feel like we take it for granted sometimes, how important certain political government systems are to being, when they're competent, how important they are. And obviously the more, the UK is the perfect example of a super solidified, proven government, and I think that's where a lot of its riches come from.
The UK is
So,
not perfect. It does have problems. As stated earlier, per
That's my
capita
Nauru
measures
story.
ignores wealth distribution. The UK has pretty high inequality for a rich country. Figures from Parliament show it is as high as the 1960s and 70s as it is now. The UK is also home to a number of large energy companies, including 2 of the 6 oil and gas superpowers, BP and Royal Dutch Shell. The UK is also rich in a number of natural resources, including coal, tin, limestone, iron ore, salt, clay, chalk, gypsum, lead and silica. Forbes also rated the UK as the best country in the world for doing business. The UK also ranks as the 2nd best country in the world for startups, only behind the US, and ranks as the 8th best country in the world for ease of business. The fact that English is classed as the language of business and billions of people around the world either speak it fluently or as a second language highly benefits the UK. It makes doing business easier and
speak
increases
American.
efficiency drastically. Imagine a Japanese businessman who only speaks Japanese trying to close a deal with an Ethiopian man. This would prove rather difficult and would require a very specific and unique translator to assist. You may have heard of this little old city in the southeast of England called London. London is classed as the financial capital of the world, sometimes described as the city of cities because each borough is completely different to the next. London is the world's most international and connected financial centre, providing unrivaled access to global markets. It is a magnet for workers from around the world who make up a very diverse pool of financial and professional service specialists. In other words, London is the most influential and important city in the world when it comes to financial markets and business. It is the capital of the former most powerful colony on Earth, and although in the 21st century this no longer exists, its unrivaled importance
Didn't you guys have Tanzania as well? Because I thought it pretty much connected this.
and an opportunity still remains. London is the world capital for foreign exchange trading with a global market share of 43% of the daily 6.6 trillion global turnover. One of the world's most visited
What does that
cities,
mean?
London has something for everyone, from history and culture to fine food and exceedingly good times.
Does anyone know what that means?
Trillion global market share of 43%.
What does that mean? Global market share of 43%. It makes me think that it's 43% of the global market. There's no way that's true. So what does that mean?
Of the daily 6.6 trillion global turnover.
And what's
of the
the
world's
turnover?
most visited cities, London has something for everyone, from history and culture to fine food and exceedingly good times. With such diversity, London's cultural dynamism makes it among the world's most international cities. It is a city of ideas, an innovator of art and culture. Yes, for the average Joe, it is expensive and life can be quite challenging at times, but for the mega rich, it is a city where business and money is to be made in vast amounts. Incredibly, although the UK is the 5th largest economy in the world and completely dwarfs many larger countries in terms of GDP, out of the top 100 highest market cap companies in the world, only 2 are from the UK. AstraZeneca, the guys who
Saudi
developed one of the
Aramco is $2 trillion.
COVID-19 vaccines, and Linde, a chemical and gas company worth 172 billion and 160 billion respectively. The
When you get into the trillions, like my brain doesn't work.
worth 100 does make a 2 billion and 160 billion respectively. The UK also does make a considerable amount of income from tourism, pre-pandemic of course. With over
True. I
40
didn't even think
million
about
visits in 2019, inbound tourism contributed to around 28 billion to the British economy, although just over half of that was spent in London, which was the 3rd most visited city in the world, 21.7 million, behind 2nd place Bangkok and 1st place Hong Kong. So although the UK is completely and utterly dwarfed by the likes of USA and China in terms of economy size, this is expected as their populations and land size are astronomically bigger. The UK overall is a friendly, welcoming place, and London is one of the most sought after cities to live and work in the world. In my real life job, I work with so many people from across Europe and the world, and they all say how moving to London is everyone's dream. If you want to progress your career and let your dreams come true, then London is the place to be. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please feel free to drop a like, and if
Great
you love
channel.
this sort of content and learning about geography from around the world, consider subscribing, it is completely free, and we've got plenty more to come, and you can unsubscribe at any time. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you very soon in the next video.
I think a lot of London's success, that was a great video, very interesting. And a lot of your success, I'm reiterating myself, I get that, but it has to do with whatever your country did in the 16 and 1700s is what you have to thank for today's success, because I would say more than any other country in the world, you have influenced other countries in the world, more so than any country. And although you might think like there would be more bitter relations with former colonies that you had, but it seems to be the opposite, where mostly the country, like I think London is benefiting from its colonial ventures around the world when it was an empire. Did I say London? Britain, you know. Yeah, you formed a governmental framework that has affected and that has been the sort of template mold for more economic and political structures around the world than probably any other. And that is, when it comes down to it, you're a very rich country because your people are very capable, smart, and have proven how good they are. And you form, you know, people trust you. You're very smart people. That's, yeah. So, yeah, love you all. Hope you guys are all doing well. Would appreciate any comments down below. If I said something that was wrong, pretty high possibility that happened. Please crack me down below. Any comments are appreciated. I would love if you liked and subscribed, and hopefully I'll see you guys next video. All right? Bye, guys.